Hello folks, welcome to my YouTube channel, Watercolor Impressions. This week we are going to learn how to paint white buildings, and there's a trick to it. Before we go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel. And let's get started, guys. As always, I'll provide the drawing template and reference. Check my video description to download it so you guys can follow with me. In the beginning of the video, I said that there's a trick to paint white buildings. The simple trick is to leave white paper as it is, just not to paint, and just indicate where the lighting and shadow goes. And there's a trick to it, and what I said is true, and I think we are done with this video. Not really. We have to do the first wash, and we have to specify where the lighting and shadow goes, and that's how painting works. As a painter, we are giving an illusion how everything works in reality, and when I draw, I look for major shapes. This is a trick I learned from one of my favorite artists, and he always says think everything as a shape, not as an object. If you think as an object, for example, I drew a truck which is in the foreground. If I would have thought it's a truck, I would have been like I had a hard time doing it. But I was thinking as the shape. The biggest shape of the truck is a triangle or a square, and the left is a couple of details here and there, and that shows the shape of the truck and everything in it. So as I'm blocking everything, I'm just going to the building in the foreground. I'm going to indicate where the shadows and goes inside that building. And you can see there's also a light pole in front of in my reference. I'm just going to ignore it because that's kind of disturbing my composition. So I put that light on the right hand side. This is just to show how to create impact in your painting. So this wash is really important when you paint white buildings, because leaving out because the negative shapes is really important. The positive against negative. Since we are painting white building, I want to make sure that I want to leave some white bits for here and there. As it comes down, the sky becomes a little bit weak, so I'm also making sure that the tonal value is a little bit lighter at the bottom. And you can see there is 3 buildings, which is in the foreground, midground, and the background. I thought of doing everything white, but it wouldn't look good, so I want to make sure the background building is white. And I'm going to stain a little bit with yellow ochre, a little bit of raw amber for the midground building, and I'm just going to combine it. And there's this small house, and it also creates a little bit of separation between the foreground and the midground. And for that, I'm using a little bit of burnt amber, and I'm also increasing the gradient at the bottom with warmth in my wash. And I'm also combining that with the midground building as well. And this is what I was talking about. I have a tendency of filling in everything without looking at my reference. That's really important as a painter, to look at stuff, I think, because there is a big garbage bin there with the green thing, and that also acts as a really good little bit of color in our painting. And I'm also adding some grass patches here and here. And doing the first wash is really important in any kind of painting, because that shows the map where everything goes. So I'm going to connect the background with the foreground with the road. And with the road, you can see it's kind of a little bit of grayish, but I'm going to introduce a little bit of warmth in the distance, so to create a glow in the road. As it comes down, I'm going to increase with a warmer pigment. The reason being, I'm introducing a little bit of warmth in my foreground, because warm colors come the front and the cooler colors go at the back. And I'm also putting a line to enhance a little bit of perspective. And as you can see, I didn't paint anything in my white buildings. I left it as it is. And let's block in some of the shadows and some of the details in the background building. I'm not going to paint anything at the background building. So that's a beautiful thing about painting white buildings, is that you have to paint less to get more details. I went ahead and finished the details at the background, but I also kept my statement really simple, the details really simple, because since it's a background building. Now I'll spend more time on my foreground building to put a lot of details in it. Because when you see this painting from far, the first thing people have to notice is the foreground building than the background. For the background, I'm also making my statement simple as well, and I'm putting a lot of cooler colors as well so that it goes in distance. And I also want to frame my truck as well, so I'm putting a little bit of darker value in there as well. So I'll connect that the background tree with our foreground tree, with the midground trees. And there's a lot of warmth, and it's summer is almost done in Toronto. And I just want to make sure that the trees are falling and the fall is approaching. So some of the trees have a lot of warmth in them. And this is the building where I live, because I was walking outside and I saw this. So I thought like it would be a nice subject to paint white buildings. So I'm also introducing a little bit of mid value. And as I said, don't fill in everything. Leave some white bits here and there. This is one of the things I'm improving on, filling everything. And I also blocked in some of the shadows of the background for the midground building. At the bottom, I'm going to introduce a lot of darker pigment because that enhances a little bit of light. I'm also doing this on wet technique because it blends everything it by itself and it shows a lot of color variations in our painting. I find it straight lines are boring, so I made my shadows in an angle, so that looks pretty cool instead of doing straight line shadows. And this also helps us to frame our foreground building as well. So the foreground building, and this is the bit which makes our foreground building stands out, and it's on the shadow side. And you could see I didn't paint anything on the light side, I'm only painting on the shadow side. On the shadow side, you could see there's a lot of coolness in our shadows. Since it's a white building and there's a lot of shadows in it, and I will just combine that shadow with the shadow I put in now. And that's why I waited this for a long time, and I'll just combine everything together and blend it by itself. And you can see as soon as we put the shadows on our foreground building, it looked simple and yet it looks really good. And that's it, we can call this painting as it is and we can call it done. But I'm going to put a little bit of design element in my painting as well. Instead of putting white paint, I'm going to take my clean brush. I'm just going to take off the white paint for the white bits in our building. And this is the balcony, the stairs. So I'm just going to put some darker pigments here and there. And I want this to be everything to be blurry. If you squint your eyes and if you see the reference, the shadow side looks a little bit blurry, and it also gives an impression, an illusion when the painting is seen from far. It does look photorealistic. So as a painter, you also try to do it in a simpler strokes, and yet it looks real as possible. And I let it dry for a bit, and I also put another shadow. Even though there is no shadows on my foreground building, I also did a little bit of designing. As I said, straight lines are boring, so I made a 45-degree angle. In any kind of painting I do, I always add figures in my scene, show the little bit sense of scale in our painting as well. I also kept it really simple as possible. Even though there is trucks and cars in our painting, this helps us to show a sense of scale even better with figures in it. And I'm adding the details for the truck, which is on the midground. And when you see, I'm trying to add this truck in least strokes as possible. And as years of painting now, I recently realized that your strokes shows a lot of confidence in your painting. And if you can do it in one stroke, and do it, because that shows how confident you paint when you're painting it. And I'm also trying to, whenever I put a stroke, I'm thinking everything in terms of shapes, and I'm trying to do it as fast as possible with the least amount of strokes. And you could see as soon as I add a little bit of shadows here and there, and the truck looks like a truck. So I'm adding shadows for it, and I'm also combining everything together. I don't like having unconnected shapes in my painting. And even though there is no figure in our midground, I also add them. And this is the truck which is in the foreground is really important as well. And this helps us to combine the shadows, the foreground shadows and of the trees, and that will look really cool, and it also take us and lead us into the painting. And I'm also making it a little bit darker so that it comes in the front. And you can see I also add a little bit of shadow, which is also on the grass as well. And I'll persevere, I'll keep building this shadow till I'm happy with it. And as you can see, once we blocked in the light and shadows, the whole painting came alive. And I'm also adding a little bit of designing for the truck in the front. And we are almost at the end of the painting. The rest is to add a little bit of highlights here and there. You could use Chinese white, and some people use gouache, and use it with ease and don't overdo it. So whenever you're using white paint, just to make sure to bring back some of the highlights, you couldn't leave it once you started painting. And you can see I'm trying to bring light wherever I can, so that it goes in distance or it comes in the front. The good example would be the warm building. As soon as we added that highlight, you could see it goes in the midground, and it also created separation between the midground building and the foreground building. And this is the last bit I'm going to add some street poles, and this is just to show a little bit of perspective in our painting as well. And now it's your turn. Take my drawing template and reference, and let's see what you can come up with. Thanks again for watching this how to paint white buildings in watercolors with me. Let me know what you guys think about this video in the comment section. If there's any way I can improve this video, and let me know in the comment section as well. There's always good to learn something from other people. And if you want me to cover any of the subjects in watercolors, write me at watercolorimpressions@gmail.com or comment below. Before you go, hit the subscribe button so you guys can get weekly video updates from our channel.